Greetings, Elderly Vegan here, and today I'm going to show you how I prepare the whole grain dish I've been making for, well, going on 25 years. And given I had absolutely zero experience in cooking until age 50, I needed a super user-friendly, nutritious dish I could assemble in the least amount of time as possible. Indeed, not only is this dish simple to make, but it's very hard to ruin. The closest I've ever come to ruining this grain dish occurred when I forgot it was in the oven and it cooked an additional 45 minutes before I discovered the poor little guy was still in his 350-degree oven. And other than being in a severe state of dehydration, it actually fell short of being ruined. At any rate, this dish is extremely versatile, allowing a wide variety of variations without changing the overall effect. That said, you will need to include one or more ingredients to prevent this dish from becoming exceedingly boring. And in that regard, I'm now adding two key ingredients to solve this problem. They are the modest inclusion of raisins, and the other is the judicial use of a type of hot sauce which contains aged cayenne red peppers, distilled vinegar, and garlic powder. But this is not a spicy dish with the amount of hot sauce I'm adding. Rather, just enough to make it interesting. Suffice it to say, the inclusion of both the raisins and the hot sauce work together to make this dish enjoyable so that your friends may well request a second helping. Okay then, before we put this dish together, I thought I'd provide you with the health benefits for all the ingredients. The main ingredients include lentils, wild rice, quinoa, buckwheat, amaranth, and diced tomatoes. And this only leaves the two key ingredients I've already mentioned, as well as the addition of 3 spices. That's it. Anyway, lentils, as you may know, are a great source of fiber as well as a complete protein. And lentils are also rich in potassium, folate, magnesium, and as such, they're very heart healthy. And due to the combination of their complex carbohydrates and fiber, they're also a good source for blood sugar control. As for the wild rice, well, it's not really a rice at all. Technically, it's a whole grain, and its glycemic index is between 45 and 55, making it more favorable than the traditional kinds of rice with regard to blood sugar control. Wild rice is also a better source of protein than the traditional rices, and it's also a good source of fiber, magnesium, phosphorus, and zinc. And not surprisingly, wild rice is also gluten-free, as are all the ingredients in this dish. And wild rice contains 30% fewer calories than brown rice. I just wish it were 3 times less expensive. And as you know, I'm also adding the ancient grains quinoa, buckwheat, and amaranth. Suffice it to say, these grains are all excellent sources of protein, easily surpassing wheat for that matter, while quinoa and buckwheat also surpass wheat when it comes to fiber. And with regard to a complete protein, amaranth really outperforms wheat. In fact, these ancient grains generally have more fiber along with a better profile of healthy fats, vitamins, and minerals than does wheat. And my last primary ingredient is diced tomatoes. And the nutrient I'm going for in tomatoes is called lycopene. Lycopene has the ability to help prevent certain forms of cancer and improve cardiovascular health. Yet regarding lycopene, this may be the one instance where a processed form of food is actually superior to a fresh, whole food from a nutritional standpoint. This is because lycopene in a fresh tomato is tightly bound to a protein, and this reduces its bioavailability. For this reason, the minimal processing for canned diced tomatoes will provide a greater amount of this key nutrient because of its improved bioavailability. Yet I should also mention that since nanoplastics are a hot item in the news, Many of the plastic liners in canned goods contain BPA, which has an estrogen-like effect in the body. Hence, the reason for the concern. However, one can buy canned diced tomatoes which attempt to address this issue. The label should say the can is either BPA-free or BPA non-intent. As it turns out, these two terms come very close to meaning the same thing. BPA non-intent means the company does not add BPA to their liners, but since BPA is so ubiquitous in our environment, ensuring their liners are totally free of BPA is not possible. And according to AI, cans labeled as BPA-free actually can't rule out the presence of trace amounts of BPA either. Now, where were we before I got sidetracked on nanoplastics? Ah yes, as far as the two key ingredients are concerned, raisins are a rich source of fiber and they contribute to bone health by providing a good source of boron, magnesium, and calcium. Raisins are also a good source of antioxidants. As for the hot sauce containing red cayenne peppers, the key nutrient is called capsaicin, which has the ability to ramp up one's metabolic rate such that one burns fat more readily. At this point, the only other ingredients I add are those three spices, and they are oregano, sage, and thyme. And they too add their particular blend of antioxidants, anti-inflammatory, and antimicrobial properties. Now then, let's assemble this grain dish and place it in the oven set at 350 degrees. Alrighty then, it's time to assemble the grain dish. First up is 1 cup total with an equal volume of wild rice and lentils. This is followed by 1 can of petite diced tomatoes. Obviously, we're going to have to add some water to this. In this glass, I have the equivalent of 1 1/4 cans of water. Next up is one of the key ingredients. I happen to be using Frank's Red Hot Original. So I will add 3 tablespoons. Okay, another key ingredient, 1/2 cup of raisins. And that only leaves the 3 spices. In this container, I have 1 tablespoon each of oregano, thyme, and sage. I will then mix these guys together. And place the lid on the 2-quart baking dish. I will place it in a 350 degree oven. Setting the timer for 55 minutes. And at this point, we're nearly finished. All right, you'll know when this dish is ready to come out of the oven because the kitchen will be filled with a wonderful aroma. And we have just 4 seconds to go. At this point, I will put on my mismatched mitts and take this grain dish guy out of his 350 degree oven. Set him on the top of the stove and fold in the 3 ancient grains. In this container, I had equal volumes of each one of them. I used 3 tablespoons of amaranth, 3 tablespoons of quinoa, 3 tablespoons of buckwheat. I will fold them in. And these grains are so delicate, they don't need to go back into the oven to cook any longer. Just adding them to a dish that's come straight out of a 350-degree oven is plenty enough time for them to do all the cooking they need to do. At this point, you're done. Replace the lid, and you will probably have to let it cool for about 40 minutes or so, because those grains do need a chance to cook before it's ready to serve. Okay, our grain dish is cooled down sufficiently enough. It's time to serve it up. And I should also mention, I've eaten it straight out of the refrigerator. It works just fine that way too. It's also a standalone dish. It doesn't require any extra ingredients at all. But in the past, I've added all sorts of things. Today, I've added some nuts and seeds and a little bit of flaxseed oil. All right, here you go. And we'll see how we've done. To your health.
To your health.
Well, I hope you found this video informative. If you did, please give us a like. And I do hope you try this dish because it's so easy to make and very nutritious. To your good health, the elderly vegan.